On Sunday afternoons during the summer, musicians and dancers gather at Mabry Mill along the Blue Ridge Parkway in Southern Virginia.
I don't know how come us to get started here. Some of them just got to playing music, and we just sort of gathered in by accident, and then got coming over here every weekend. And then for the last 8 to 10 years, we've been coming here every Sunday evening.
Luther Boyd's fluid style is built on his own favorite step. He spices it up from time to time with smooth changes to other moves.
The dance that I do,
Yeah.
just plumb old country Flatfoot. Yeah.
Dancers have long gathered at Cataloochee Ranch near Maggie Valley. We asked a group of dancers from around North Carolina to share their thoughts on dancing.
To me, the buck and wing dance is it's a great deal like a banjo player. If he walks into a room and a banjo is sitting there, he wants to pick it up and get the music out. If I walk into the room while he's playing that banjo, the music within me is in my feet. So therefore, I bring it out that way. He's a getting it out of a banjo, I'm a getting it out of my feet.
I feel like these dances are freedom dances. Freedom by meaning is people tend to do this when they're through work. You know, they're free from their day's work. It's a time to relax and celebrate. And also freedom by meaning you're never wrong. You know, you can be taught or you can watch and you can do this. And everybody's different, but yet everybody's right.
I think it's the same goal. I mean, you know, a lot of places you're going downtown, a lot of people take this street, a lot of people take that street, a lot of people take other routes, everything, but your destination is the same. It's an expression of personality. When you dance, you do everything you do. That's an expression of your being.
Well, the step dancing, the making of rhythms with the feet that we're talking about, both the buck dancing is done by the black community in the rural South, and also the clogging, flat-footing buck dancing that comes from the Southern Appalachian Mountains is really seems to be a product of many different types of traditional dancing from different parts of the world that have met here. And this is the only place in the world where these dances have all come together. And these are two ways of making rhythms that have come out of it. And I think the most important thing is that so far it's a dance that's never been standardized. It's a dance where people can get up and express themselves individually. Nobody can tell you you're doing it right or wrong. You can change your style of dancing to try to fit a particular competition or set of rules where people are judging if you want to. But I think most people get their enjoyment from just getting up and reacting to music, letting the rhythms come out of their feet.
And you don't have to be on a dance floor to express yourself. I've done it on the street. To hear music, may dance a step or two, or in a grocery store. It doesn't make any difference where you are. You're answering the music, or I am, with body English, in other words. My feet, hands, and all.
Jay Burris lives near Galax, Virginia. His style is clean and percussive. He's won many Flatfoot contests, especially at the Galax Fiddlers Convention. Jay calls the fast, continuous rhythm that he often uses to start a dance cutting the pigeon wing. You can hear it extra clearly on the concrete floor of his porch.
Well, I guess every time I heard music, I was on the floor. My mother said she believed I came here dancing. And in those younger years when my dad played the fiddle, every time he'd play, I'd try to dance. I reckon that was one way I learned. Mm-hmm. And some of the first steps that I do when I first go into a dance, the steps that I started with when I first learned to dance. Mm-hmm. And then over the years, as other dances come along, I started changing, getting more steps, different kind of steps. And when rock and roll came in, started jitterbugging, some of those steps creeped into my dancing. Got some of those steps in there. But the main basic steps that I started to go with, I'll demonstrate a little of it if I can, is just all Flatfoot dancers that I can ever remember, they put more dependence in keeping time to the music. If a note's in the music, put the note in there with your feet when you're dancing it. And that is the basics, I believe, to Flatfoot dancing or any kind of dancing. If you don't keep in time with the music, you're just not dancing. The really old-time Flatfoot dancing, to really see how it's done, you got to get somebody older than I am to tell you how it's done. Because I forgot a lot of the early steps that I used to do. And once you go from one to another, it's hard to ever come back to those steps again.
Here in southeastern Kentucky, some people call their dancing hoedowning. Hoedowning can be a stylized walking step done solo or sometimes during a square or circle dance. Willis Fields uses a lot of arm and shoulder movement in his vigorous style, and his foot movement is more varied than most.
Well, I was about between 7 and 8 years old. Grand Isom, old man Grand Isom, the head of Kingdom Come, that's where I was raised at, on Kingdom Come. His daughter, Avis, took me through the first square dance. I enjoyed it so much, you know, that's something, you know, when you enjoy something, you don't forget it when you do it. And I remember that first square dance up at Herman Isom, had a bean string. In other words, they had a big room, you know, like this, and it's pile full of green beans. Everybody come. When you get them beans strung, broke up, you square dance. You didn't square dance, you get them beans broke up. And you start square dance, you square dance stuff. Till you get ready to quit, daylight if you want to. I remember one time we went there and he had a boy named Albert. And Herman told us, he said, I don't want nary pluck on the 5-string until these beans are strong. Boy, he bound to have 20 bushels in the middle of the floor and everybody sitting around the walls, you know, stringing beans. And everybody wanting to square dance so bad they could taste it. Anyway, Albert told me, he said, we'll get these beans strong time square dance. He said, the old man, when he goes in the kitchen, his old log house, he said, you get up and go outside. I'll fill this bushel basket full of beans, hand them out the window to you. He said, you pour them in the creek. We'll get rid of these beans. He said, we got to. So I went on the outside. And everybody see what was coming off, so they'd say, we need a drink of water. The old man Herman, he'd go in the opposite room in the kitchen to get the water. While he's gone, they'd fill that basket up full of beans, stick them out the window, and I'd throw them in the creek, you know. It wasn't long, we had the beans all strung. What wasn't in the creek, you know. We got to dancing. Oh, next day, though, when he found his beans in that creek, man, he whooped Albert, brother, and he was a grown man.
Willis Fields is calling Give Old Tucker a Chance. There's always one extra dancer without a partner who gets a chance to do a hoedown solo. Aljamae Hinton is from the area just east of Raleigh, North Carolina. She gets a variety of sounds in her buck dancing by using her heel and toe distinctly for touching, slapping, or sliding, which all contribute to her syncopated style.
When I first started dance, you know, I just do the old twist and dance, you know, like that. And then after a while, I pick up that old time buck dance, you know. See, I've been dancing since I was a little bitty girl. Mama told me one day, they started slapping like that. When they slapped like that, I said, oh, shuck, I can do that. And I said, Algemade, isn't that Algemade? Oh, that ain't there. Now I went to Cheltenham Cold like this here. That my daddy. We be blowing a bottle, you know, my cousin, and I be picking guitar. Someone be playing the spoon, someone be playing the washboard. So we just knock up something once in a while. I can't be still myself.
Some seems to think that Flatfoot and clogging is the same thing, but it's not. You look it up in any kind of a book or anything that you can go by, it's dancing, and see how much difference there are in it. Well, there's two different steps there.
What is the difference between Flatfoot and buck and clog?
Buck dance is a dance you get up higher, and it's not much of your feet as are going to be on that floor pattern like Flatfoot. And clogging, you swing your feet around a lot. Behind you, you've seen them twist their feet and everything, legs and stuff, you know. Well, now to me, that's clogging. To me, that's counted clogging. And this your regular old Flatfoot, down on the floor. There's three different dances there, to believe that, right? Could see it. There's three different names of them dances.
On Saturday nights, Gussie Lane is usually out on this floor with about 50 other dancers from the community who gather at Joe and Jeanette Carter's music barn in southwestern Virginia. Gussie can be a subtle flat-footer, but he also likes to be a real character on the floor, doing much of what he does for humor and effect. Here he is dancing a variety of broad moves that appeal to both audience and camera.
they'd come to our house, people would, and we lived long ways, you know, out up on the hills and nowhere to go. There was nothing but dirt roads and no way to go anywhere but ride horseback. And they'd just come there and my dad played the fiddle, and there's other old-time men come in and played the fiddle. They'd come for miles and stay all night with us, maybe a week sometimes. And they'd play, and they'd come there, and some of them could dance, and we'd just see them dancing and just learn to dance after them. Just learn their steps as they danced.
What did they call that type of dancing that you do?
Well, it's called something like Flatfoot dancing, and some of them called it two-step, some of them called it side-step, some of them called it the back step. And this sort of like that, they never done no Charleston dance or anything like that. We never did see them a dance of that, you know, till we got growing up, and, you know, years ago we never seen nothing like a Charleston dance.
All right, I'll start playing.
I'll start dancing.
Okay.
As with most Flatfoot dancers, Phoebe Parsons' style is understated. We can imagine that even in her younger years, her steps would have been subtle and close to the ground, though more nimble and perhaps a little quicker. Here she dances 6 or 7 movements, using scuffs, shuffles, stamps, and hops, while most of the time keeping a beat with a barely perceptible tapping of her left toe. The Maggie Valley area has long had an active dance community. Recently, the focus for the dancers of the entire region has become Kyle Edwards' stomping ground. Team clogging was created here in western North Carolina, and caller Jim Hyatt once danced with the legendary Soco Gap dancers, one of the first organized groups.
I do remember the first dance I ever got in or went to, and I was looking for an uncle of mine, and that's where I found him, was at a square dance. And of course he says, we'll fall right in and go through that. And I've been dancing ever since. So now where I learned it, I guess is just there.
John Reeves first learned his dancing from his uncle Sam Queen, who organized the Soco Gap team in the 1920s. John buck dances entirely up on his toes, even when he bends his knees way down to do the broken wing step.
dancing to me is they don't name their steps, they don't wear taps. They're more freedom oriented. They do what they feel, but they do dance exactly with the music. When the music changes, they either move around or they float around, and I would say a buck dancer would be on the toes most of the time. A buck dancer keeps his hands, he dances from like his waist down, and his feet does a lot of things, and you get a lot of different sounds, a lot of trickery, a lot of show, a whole lot of show in a buck dancer. But a buck dancer, I feel like they feel what they're doing more than a clogger. To be a buck dancer, I feel like you have to feel it. Somebody to be a good buck dancer, you just about have to be raised around it. You have to memorize it. You have to see it so much that it's just there.
I'd say my mother was probably the most influential. When I was young, she had a country store with a nickel jukebox, and I would beg nickels to get to dance for people. And I'd say, "Mister, if you got a nickel, I'll show you something."
I got started in the clogging probably when I was about 5 years old, buck dancing. And I used to go to my grandmother's little country store too, and I'd dance in the jukebox. And on Saturday nights, we'd all go to a place up the road and dance. And I used to be on a team, and I danced on that team for about 3 years. It was the Maggie Mountain Dancers. And when I got in high school, I sort of backed away from it for a couple of years, and then I got started into it real big, and I started practicing. I started learning what I was doing. I never knew what I was doing before. And I'd get in front of a mirror and try to figure out every step and different ways to do it. And I tried to figure out what I was doing so I could teach other people.
This is the way a buck dancer should sound.
In my opinion, flatfoot dancing, flatfooters have a lot of that in. They have a lot of drag slides, which is this. And if you mix a clogger and a flatfoot dancer together and a buck dancer, I think this is what you get, because some of my favorite older dancers dance like this. constant rhythm. New steps are great if they're based on the old style. In other words, if you don't get out on left field or something, I try to keep a circle. I try to keep it around the older dancers, the older style. And I think when you watch the film of the guys that's dancing, the older guys, you can see the similarity, especially the sound. You're going to hear all the same sound. Mine may be more distinct. Some of it may sound clearer. That's because I've I've worked on it a lot. But the new steps, they look different, and they're not crazy, and they make the dancers, especially the young dancers, it keeps them interested.
Buck dancing and clogging live side by side in Maggie, each rubbing off on the other. Burton Edwards learned his first steps from his dad and other people in the community. He's refined them and picked up steps from clogging and other dance styles, and he's created new steps. Now Kyle watches his son as much as Burton watches his dad, and they trade steps back and forth. At the Catalucci meeting, dancers told stories of parties and frolics around home and at community gatherings, often after a hard day's work.
Well, there used to be 4 or 5 boys that worked on old 60 highway. They'd come over on Friday night, sometime all the way through the week, and we'd play and dance.
Used to have old cone shuckings.
Nobody's coming up there.
Wood chopping events, and when you get through, that's everybody in the neighborhood, that's more or less, well, they don't eat or plenty. Time you taste everything, you'd be full. They'd have 2 or 3 jars of whiskey at the bottom of the cone pile. Everybody feeling pretty good. That's where you got a lot of that padding.
Well, we had a lot of plays at the house, and also for the schools in the fall of the year, near Christmas, parties. And then we'd go to somebody's house and dance the rest of the night.
We used to go around to the White Houses after the sale of tobacco, and people would congregate, and you see some of the dancers come out there with chaucers, buck dances, and things like that. And Well, the crowd gave them money, and I was looking, and I always got answers. And the way money was, I said, I would love to get a little bit of it, too. If a person got up there and did some kind of funny step, then you would practice that for quite a few days, get it in your mind. And then maybe the next time you go, you would present that, and you'd find another little step somebody done did. But in one sense, you got to be competitive if you're going to try to dance.
My dad entered a competition, and I think he was 16, 1936, and the Grand Ole Opry traveling show, the Martha White Flower show that was on the road, would come around the towns and put up tents, and in Seven Springs, North Carolina, they went to do one of their tent shows. They'd come into town on Friday night, they would have a local fiddle competition or talent competition to let everybody know they were in town, and then on Saturday night, the performers that were on the road show would do their performance. And on this Friday night, my daddy grew up with this black guy that was in his neighborhood that was the same age he was, and my dad was playing the banjo by that time and harmonica at the same time. And so they entered the competition that night, and my dad entered playing the banjo and the harmonica, and Rudolph Garner wanted to dance, but nobody would play for him. So my dad told him he'd play for him, and he entered, did buck dancing. My dad played the banjo for him, and some fiddler won first place, and my dad won second place, and Rudolph won third place.
In that family of mine, if they got together, someone wanted to dance. So someone got the music, and that's all they done. There wasn't any. In fact, more than likely, they didn't have the room for a square dance. So it'd be each individual doing his thing, in other words.
People out in the country, they used to have wood cuttings and corn shuckings, and after that, after all the evening, they'd have a big frolic, somebody playing guitars, and the old salsa was the main thing out, and I guess everybody else was, you get to yourself, you practice this and practice this. The next entertainment place to have, you'd try it out and you'd find out what the neighbors had. But I think most dancers, they have a little imaginary beat in their head. But you had old guitar music and hand slapping, you know. But it used to, a lot of times they didn't have any, no instruments, no music, and so they would start out hand slapping. There's many variations of it. You can just, then you could add another lick to it.
Well, I had an uncle, he could do buck dance, but I just caught just a little from looking at him. He just didn't sit down and teach me. So he does his buck. He didn't do tapping. So I had a cousin could tap. So I more or less looked at him and got my little tapping from my cousin. But neither one didn't take up too much time. I just, whenever I see them do it, I just had to pick it up that way. others don't do it. They didn't take time. So, well, you got the wrong step. So I practically learned myself. So I see him. I can't do it as well as he do the book, but he did something sort of this on the heel and toe like that. So on the heel and your toe, that is called the buck. So when you raise it up on your toes, you change it from a buck to a tap. So it goes. Buck go heels and toe. You mostly flat-footing. That's the buck. Okay, you change it over to a tap, which is on your toes. It goes just as
I guess everybody got a different way of doing it, but you start the book, I reckon you'd call it the buck dance, you'd say that you just. And that was a little bit of the book and all. So I guess that's the way we started out. Community gatherings on a weekend celebration or something.
This is an addition of the train or steam train. They are diesel today, but when the steam was out, it goes something as this. And it's really got its feet.
Stage tap dancing was refined from older traditional dances. Then it fed back into the traditions that it came from. As people moved from the country to towns, there was more and more trading of dance styles and steps. Often a dancer's most prized possession was the ability to express individuality and creativity.
a little shout special and God rest. First I remember buck dancing, my mother could do buck dance. I was about 13 or 14 years old, and my uncle played a banjo. And I would dance, and then they'd have square dances, first one place and then another. They'd want to always bring me and want to see me dance. A lot of the steps I just guessed at them, and some that I learned from other folks.
Biddy Reese was raised near Deep Gap in northwestern North Carolina. She started dancing as a child about 1915. Each of her steps is clear and distinct from the next, and she has about 6 or 8 that she does here. In the same way that the fiddle is considered by some to be the devil's instrument, the dancing that goes with it is judged no more lightly.
Well, I'll tell you, I have danced ever since I was about 12 or 13 years old. And I know of some people that thinks that it's being religion to dance. But I have never felt like that I was doing anything wrong about dancing. I think if you're doing something wrong, well, your conscience will teach you so. We went to a lot of square dances on the weekends from December to January. From December to January. And I learned square dance, old-timey square dance. And one time I remember when I was about 14 or 15, there's a place that they call Denny. I went to that place one time, and there's a man by the name of Ben Miller. That's Eula Rogers' daddy. He was a fiddler. He was a #1 fiddler. Well, I was staying with a man and his wife, and so Mr. Ben had a covered wagon and a yoke of oxen, steers or whatever you want to call them. And when I went in a covered wagon to this place, they called it, the name of the place was Denny. That was a Blow Derby. And the man that lived where I went, his name was Denny, named him out of the place. And Eula's daddy, Ben Miller, played the fiddle there for me to dance. And I tell you, he could play too. I was about maybe 14 years old.
Mm-hmm. Did he dance too?
Yes, he could dance. He could dance too. I've seen him grab an old dishpan up and pick it and knock it off. Dance. Right, Eula?
Yeah.
Eula Rogers' smooth Flatfoot dancing blends steps and styles so gracefully that it's hard to think of them as individual movements. She glides flat-footed, holds herself up on the balls of her feet, and slides or chugs back and forth, moving easily between these three ways of dancing. Both Biddy Reese and Eula Rogers grew up in the same community with craftsman and dancer Willard Watson, who has influenced younger dancers both locally and from outside the region. Although Willard isn't dancing any longer, Eula has several steps which are similar to his. Animal dances are part of Southern dance tradition. Some people think they're a result of Native American influence. Stanley Hicks learned a few animal dances from other people, and he's made up some on his own.
Well, I learned it off my grandpa. Yeah, when I was just a kid, I'd say it's around 9, 10 years old. Where I learned the Flatfoot. And then the buck dancing, I learned it off of the old people, like Hugh Johnson taught him, you know, and people like that. I learned the buck dancing off of him. And then the eagle dance, where that is at, I saw a lot of them, you know, they got up pretty grown. I'd say 12, 13 years old. That's when they put the eagle dance on and put one in the center. That was its food, you see, and the lizard dance. And I mostly learned that myself, you know, just when I come up as a kid, you know, and got to catching lizards and stuff and see how they'd work, you know, and all. And then I tried it at school to see how it come out. And I learned that mostly myself, the lizard dance. This is the bear dance. This is what I can do of it. That's the one. That's the one.
Do they ever wind up by going all the way
Yeah,
over?
they wound up and go back on it. See, if I could, like it was, you go down and you turn back and come back.
Oh.
See, the bear turns over, but I see they couldn't make the wiggle on it. Gave you part of it. They see you stand up, and they'll walk.
Okay.
You stand up and walk on your hands, and then you come back into it.
Some dancers step percussively, and others use movement to express rhythm. Stanley combines both here in what he calls the crossfoot dance. L.C. King's father and all 11 brothers and sisters dance. They're from Madison County, western North Carolina, where Cecil Sharp did much of his collecting of old English ballads. L.C. learned his first Flatfoot steps from his dad and combined them with some tap steps that he picked up later.
Well, the first was from my father. I watched him over a period of years, and then a friend of mine, he and I used to tap dance some together. Learned a lot from him, and then other than that, just picking it up different people. I had a friend that danced a lot, and I learned a lot from him. He learned his, and he had polio, and was in the hospital a lot. And there's a black man that he taught him a lot how to dance. He watched him, and he would get him up and learn him how to dance. And I learned a lot of the tap from him. And over the years, I mixed a little tap dance with, I guess, the Flatfoot.
Younger dancers, some from outside of the region, have made a point of learning traditional styles from older mountain dancers and have organized performing groups. The fiddle puppets have taken what they've learned in new directions, combining styles especially those of western North Carolina, making up new steps and introducing mountain dancing to people all over the country.
My dancing is a result of my early experiences going to square dances in eastern North Carolina with my parents, to later on my involvement in the early days with the Greengrass Cloggers. And the basic step that we used for most of our early precision clogging, traditional clogging, changed due to our meeting of people like Willard Watson, who taught us some old barnyard steps, to our involvement with Hansel Aldridge from Charlotte, who was the first person I ever really saw get up and dance completely on his toes. And then later on, influenced by Robert Dotson from Sugar Grove, North Carolina. And what I'm going to do is have the Dutch Cove String Band to play a couple of tunes or play Sally Ann for me, and I'm going to start out with my very simplest steps up and show you how they evolved into what I do today when I'm just freestyling. So here we go.
You ready?
Yeah. This is the Eastern North Carolina traveling step. To the Greengrass Clogger basic step. To some of our early variations. To some of Willard's influences. To Hassel's toe walk. To Robert Dotson's walking step. Grab the heel. And then this is just me.
Ray White first learned to flatfoot as a child around home in western West Virginia. Later, he picked up tap steps by watching traveling professional dancers. His dancing is mostly tap, with some flatfoot and some steps of his own. D. Ray dances with hand patting, singing, storytelling, talking blues, and of course to music.
I'm going to try to demonstrate to you 2 or 3 steps that I learned when I first started dancing. So, the first one I ever learned, it went something like this. And I could go fast or slow or however I wanted to do it. And the next best step that I learned was a flatfoot dance, something like this. That's what I call a flatfoot dance. Then I learned another one, this guy I saw dance, he called it the back step, something like this. And that's about all I learned, but what I learned, the different steps that I do, I learned them on my own. I can do a tap, go something this way, and I'll do a 1 foot right, 1 foot left. And then I put them both together and get the sound. So you can keep any kind of time that you wish when you got steps like this. You got a good layout to go by. It's just comes natural to you when you learn what you're doing. I got one here I call a shotgun blaze. Woodpecker pecking on a pine. I see you, old pecker, but you don't see mine. Here we go. I'm going to do one for you called the groundhog. Now, I ain't saying that I'm an expert singer, but it helps me keep the rhythm and the time. But just don't pay any mind to the words you listen at or the singing part of it. But I got to do it because I ain't got no other help. It goes something like this. Let a piece of cornbread land on a shelf. Let a piece of cornbread land on a shelf. If you want any more, you can sing it yourself. Groundhog, groundhog, groundhog. Meet and a hubbard and a hide and a turn. Meet and a hubbard and a hide and a turn. If I ain't groundhog, I'll be done. Groundhog, groundhog, groundhog. That's it, Fort Pitt. This is one I call Rabbit and the Broom Sage. I used to do this quite often when I was a younger kid. And it goes something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do one here for you now that I just recently made up, or otherwise I'm making it up as I go. It's rhymes and chimes, I call it. It goes something like this. Woke up this morning as it drizzling the rain, round the corner of come ain't Jane, sliding on crutches. If you want to go to Deezy's, I'll tell you how to do. Grease your feet and little mutton soup. Go easy. Slide fantastic. You'll be there pretty soon. Up a road and across the creek, I can't get a letter but once a week. I don't know why I got out in this territory, but I'm here. I love it. Gets better all the time. If I stationed in the Navy, I'd come home and get some gravy. Boy, that'd be fine, wouldn't it? Some of them jumbo brown biscuits. Good, fantastic cold glass of milk. Woo! What town is this? Just go on. That little old sucker, come on, that's all. Oh, yeah, I love it. Come here, son.
He's ready to roll now.
Come over here, Papa. Show him how it's done, little man. Now, I was about probably a little bigger than this dude. That's my grandson. And that's best I can remember. Why, I was about his size when I began to learn what it was all about, catching on to different steps and the timing too. And I corresponded them together, and I found out it sounded pretty good in my ears. Be quiet, buddy. And so I just taken it up from that point and been doing it ever since. So here's the way they used to do me when I was, before I started walking, you know, they do me this way. And after I learned to walk, why, they'd do patting for me and stuff of that nature. Keep enticing me to dance. And I started off by something like he's doing there. That's what I call a Flatfoot. Then there's one more style in a Flatfoot area. It goes something like this. See what I mean? That's the natural flat feet. And then I learned the rest of them on my own. And this boy here, he's going to make it. He'll stay up 2 o'clock in the morning dancing with me. He's got it in him, so if he don't make it, it's going to be my fault, ain't it?
He's off to a good start. I can see that already.
Well, I see he's interested in it and he likes to do it. And I believe he'll make a dancer of some type because he's got it in him, and I like that part of it. When somebody's interested, I'll spend many hours trying to help them. Because one day after a while, I'm going to be like the leaves on these trees. I'm going to have to come down. And then I want somebody to pick it up from where I leave off and keep her circulating. Then we'll never run out of good dancing. We'll still have it.